Welcome to Strip Cover Lit, where we squeeze the bigger picture out of literature. I'm Adrian Fort, and we're here for another writer's quote. This writer's quote comes to us from, surprise, Papa himself, in Ernest Hemingway on Writing, edited by Larry W. Phillips. I know this is getting a bit repetitive, but if there's anyone that you're going to take advice from on writing, for me, the money is on someone who's in the canon, and not just the American English canon. I can't tell you how many people I've had contact me since I started the channel from around the world who are infatuated with Ernest Hemingway. This is ironically a very brief quote, but the video itself will not be all that brief because I'm bringing in outside sources. The Dictionary of Literary and Thematic Terms, compiled by Edward Quinn, which often made appearances in my weekly reader series, whether you did or more definitely did not watch that series. It's fine. No, it's okay. My feelings are a little hurt, a little bit. That's fine. You know, it's whatever. It's whatever. The quote, however, from Papa reads as such: "Prose is architecture, not interior decoration, and the Baroque is over." Prose is architecture, not interior decoration, and the Baroque is over. Before we get into things, I want to draw your attention to the comment section. This is, of course, a video in the Writer's Quote series here on the channel, but it's also part of a two-channel event. Here, every day of September, I will be posting a video. I will also be posting a video on my personal channel every day in September. That channel is linked in a pinned comment in the description below. Just go down there and click on the icon with my face in it, and it'll take you over there. But now let's get into things. Prose is architecture, not interior decoration, and the Baroque is over, says Papa. So, if you're watching this, you're probably familiar with these terms. If you've gotten this far, I'm assuming that you're familiar with the term prose and probably the term Baroque. But let's define things more clearly. Prose, from a dictionary of literary and thematic terms, a type of language not organized according to a regular metrical principle or pattern, as is poetry. As a literary vehicle, prose developed later than poetry and for some people still is, regarded as an inferior form. Throwing a little shade here, Mr. Quinn. Like poetry, prose exhibits a rhythm, but one that is, in the critic Northrop Frye's words, continuous, not recurrent. A rhythm that is particularly conducive to narrative forms where the usual aim is to move the reader along without calling attention to itself. Prose is architecture. The architecture of your story, the architecture meant to highlight the characters in said story. Is this too close? I don't know. I'm experimenting with the camera. You can see me seeing me in the glasses here. See, that's weird. That's weird. Weird and wild stuff. But prose, what we're talking about here is we're talking about the architecture of the story, those things which guide our reader through the story, through what is going on, not characterization, not dialogue, not any of these other things which tell us things more prominently about the character. So what this is it's an argument for minimalism. Why would it be an argument for minimalism? For minimalism? For minimalism. It's throwing me off. We're going to go to page 34, and we're going to read about Baroque. And I don't mean like my bank account, but I'm Baroque. Baroque. B-A-R-O-Q-U-E. And this definition is as such: in art, architecture, music, and literature, a highly ornamental style that flourished in the 17th century Europe. More significant in art and music than in literature, the Baroque style is associated with the Italian poet Giambattista Marino through a lot of touchdown passes, and the Spanish poet Luis de Góngora. In English literature, Baroque elements are present in the elaborate conceits of metaphysical poetry, particularly the poetry of Richard Crashaw. Typical of Crashaw's Baroque sensibility is this poem in which the crucified Christ's blood is conceived of as a garment. On our crucified Lord lay naked and bloody. They have left thee naked, Lord, oh, that they had. This garment, too, I would that they had denied. I would that they had denied thee with thyself, they have too richly clad, opening the purple wardrobe of thy side. Oh, never could be found garments so good for thee to wear but these of thy own blood. So, what we're talking about is an argument for minimalism because the Baroque is ornamental. So, is the Baroque dead? Is the grotesque dead? Is maximalism dead? Look how far away my hand looks. It's not that far away. It's got little hands, I guess. Got little ears. See those? I don't hear very well. Baroque is an ornamental style. I think that the argument to be had here is mainly for third-person narratives. I think that if you were writing a third-person narrative, minimalism has a definitive advantage in that what you do not want to do is you do not want to distract from your characters. We get into a little bit of argument with and around this when we talk about genre writing. How much of the grotesque is available to a horror writer that does not, in fact, distract from the things going on the page, which are, in fact, more important? What about world building with a fantasy writer? How much of that goes in? How much of that is allowed before we fall into the Baroque? I think more than detail, what we're talking about is narrative voice in the third person about setting, really, more than anything, because what we're doing is detracting from our characters when our narrative voice in the third person goes too deep on any one thing. When the narrative voice in the third person becomes a character of its own, we risk losing a whole lot of focus on our characters and their development. Our characters, mind you, being the individuals with which our readers will identify. This is what makes a great protagonist. That's why, just pull one out of the blue, Luke Skywalker was so popular because he was just a run-of-the-mill white kid in the 70s, and lots of and it doesn't have to be, I'm not making it about race, but it was just the statistics there. So many more white people love Star Wars in general. Look at one of the conventions. I'm not making this argument. I don't know where I'm going with this. But he was just a run-of-the-mill individual. Being a run-of-the-mill individual, we got to copy-paste ourselves onto Luke Skywalker. I've never seen all of the Star Wars films. I saw 2 of the Disney ones. I saw the prequels, and I saw the very first film. So I'm missing 3 Star Wars films. Anyway, Luke Skywalker was someone that was very easy to copy-paste yourself onto. Because of this, his voice in the series, and mind you, I've only seen the one Luke Skywalker movie, right? So what the hell am I talking about? His voice in the series is what is necessary, not the directorial voice, not the authoritative voice. All of these weird different places we go as Luke Skywalker, he gets to learn about those places. As he does, so do we. So this is a minimalist voice on the directorial decision. But I think that what Hemingway is really doing here is he's making an argument for minimalism as far as the narrative voice in your stories goes. And with that, I kind of agree. But what about first person? What would a minimalist voice tell us about someone in the first person? For something like this, I think we have to look no further in literature than Ernest Hemingway's pissing match buddy, William Faulkner, in As I Lay Dying. Read the Cash chapters. Cash, pretty minimalist. What does it tell us about his character? What does it tell us about his character versus Darrell, for example? What does it tell us about his character versus Jewel? Jewel, always out to get something for himself. Darrell, always all sorts of weird places. Cash, very short and direct. So, when we're talking about the first person, or we're talking about a character's thoughts and motivations, maximalism, or the Baroque, or the grotesque, might prove something like profitable. See what I did there? Profitable, cash. Anyway, that was the writer's quote for the week. I hope that I didn't make too big an ass of myself. But I think next week's quote will probably come from Hemingway too. This book is definitely worth an investment. I read it when I very first got it all the way through. And in the meantime, it's one of those books that's great for picking up and just sort of leafing through, finding something, and all of a sudden you say, oh, hey, this is something I needed to think about. This is something that's sort of motivational on a writerly plane, and it will give me a little kick in the pants, and I'll get back to writing. But it is definitely something that is worth picking up if you are into things such as being taught by the greats how to write. Now, I cannot make any arguments for how much one may or may not profit from it. I still write like shit. But it's definitely a read that has really helped me over time. So I'm making a second read through it right now and trying to sort of cherry pick out some things. But that's all I have for this episode, this writer's quote. I hope to see you next week. I hope to see you tomorrow for another video.